It's Monday, April 5, 2021, and this is the show with your two favorite April Fools, Eric and Tom, on the Paperback Warrior Podcast.
Welcome to the 85th episode of the Paperback Warrior Podcast. My name is Eric, and I'm here with my broadcast partner, Fool Tom. This is a vintage fiction podcast where we discuss old paperback books from the mid-20th century in the adventure, spy, mystery, horror, and science fiction, and even Western genres. We also have a blog at paperbackwarrior.com with daily reviews and cover photos of these paperback classics. Let me bring on Tom to tell you about this episode.
Thank you, Eric. I'm not going to talk like this the whole episode.
Please, Tom.
All right, today's feature is going to be about an author from Oklahoma who made his mark in the worlds of both crime fiction and Western fiction. His name is Clifton Adams. And listener, if you don't care about Clifton Adams, I'm telling you, you want to stick with me on this one because this feature goes into some weird and unexpected places. For my review today, I'm going to tell you about a Nick Carter Killmaster book, the 106th book in the series called The Fanatics of Al-Assad. What is your review this week, Eric? I don't even know.
My review is a book called Aces Wild. It's the first installment of the Western series called Benedict and Brazos. Or Brazos, I don't know.
All right, cool. So before we get into all that, we had a listener comment that I think we need to address. I alluded to it last week. One, because I thought it was funny, and two, because I want to get your take on it.
All right, that sounds good.
Okay, so by way of background, on the Paperback Warrior blog, we don't do bylines. Now, to the reader, there are no Tom reviews and there are no Eric reviews. There are just Paperback Warrior reviews. Now, there's some good reasons why this came about and some not-so-good reasons, right?
Well, we edit each other's work, and although you wouldn't know it from the typos that slip through the cracks, so every review is collaborative to an extent. I also like the idea of Paperback Warrior being a house name that we share. It's sort of like a tribute to the men's adventure novels of the 1970s and 1980s when you had like dozens of writers as Don Pendleton.
Right. And every now and then, I think it's only happened twice, you'll write a book review where your opinion on the book is so abhorrent and dead wrong that I need to unmask you, Eric, and provide some additional editorial content distancing myself from your insane opinion. Can you recall the two times I needed to do that?
Yes, I obliterated Swamp Master #1 and Road Blaster #1, and you corrected me.
No, you're so wrong. Do not lie to our listener. There's only a few of them, and they don't want to be lied to by you. I begged you, I cajoled you, I harassed you to read and review Death of a Citizen from 1960, which was the first book in the Matt Helm series by Donald Hamilton. One of my favorite books ever, and you hated it, and you panned it in your review.
That was a lot of fun going back and forth on that review. I don't think I hated it, but I just thought it failed to live up to the hype that everyone bestows upon it.
Right,
and it just doesn't have any action. And Matt Helm is a total wimp in the book. And he drives.
Let's not relitigate this right now. But the final article, I agree, did make for a very fun counterpoint where it was clear whose opinion belonged to whom. And I think readers enjoyed that article because it was one of the rare times that we ever had to duke it out like Siskel and Ebert style.
Yeah, and I think people really like to hear us disagree and go back and forth on certain topics. And we probably should do more of it. And people love controversy.
I'm not against that. It happened again, actually, when I pushed you into reading and reviewing Matt Helm #2, The Wrecking Crew, also by Donald Hamilton, also another paperback I totally loved.
And then once again, I didn't like that book, at all.
Right. And once again, we needed to unmask ourselves to make the article a counterpoint.
And it'll probably happen more often, but it's just so rare that you and I read the same book, and that's been a plaguing issue, I guess.
Right. As fun as it would be to read the same book and kind of debate the merits, it would screw us up because we have this super aggressive production schedule, and it requires that we both read a lot to feed the blog for daily content.
Plus, I'd guess that the vast majority of the time, we'd probably just agree that a book was good or bad, and that doesn't really make for an interesting debate.
That's no fun. Getting back to the point, Eric, you do most of the reading and writing for the blog, way more than I do. You read faster. I'd say that 2/3 of the reviews that come out in any 1 month period are probably yours, and maybe 1/3 are mine. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, in fact, in the queue right now, I've sent over 3 book reviews for you to edit, sort of read and edit. And I think I've gotten 1 from you in the past week or two, so it's like a 1-to-3 ratio.
Right. I'm hung up trying to read 2 books at the same time right now.
Jeez.
And I got a road trip coming up where I'm going to hit some audiobooks as well. Now, this changes a little bit during the fourth quarter each year. When you hit a busy season during work and have less time to read, I then try to step up my productivity and make up for your busyness.
Yeah, exactly. My regular job as an insurance agent makes the last quarter of the year lucrative, but it's a living hell. And it's everyone's open enrollment period to decide if they had a particularly bad year health-wise and if they want to change their plan. It's sort of like accountants. If you talk to them in the first quarter of the year, they're making a ton of money.
Busy season.
But they're in hell.
Yeah. So when we first started writing together, you tried to keep things pretty even, Stephen. You would leave a couple days open each week for my reviews, but then the calendar got lopsided really quickly. Your reviews would be slotted for like your stuff would be like done through August, and I'd be working on my reviews for May.
Right.
And it became a real source of pressure and stress for me, and this shouldn't be that stressful. So I just eventually just asked you to just go first in, first out with the reviews. And so as a result, there could be like an entire week that's all Eric reviews, but the reader never knows this because we don't do bylines.
Correct. And, behind the scenes, to you readers of our blog, I used to schedule myself a review for every other day, with Tom's work filling in the gaps, but sometimes that doesn't happen.
Right. So this happened a few weeks ago. For the period of February 25 through March 5, every review on the blog was written by Eric. Here's the sequence. It went Nightmare by Edward Ahrens, Police Chief by John Ball, Walk the Evil Street by Norman Daniels, Murder is My Mistress by Harry Whittington, The Brand of the Black Bat by Norman Daniels, and Dead in Bed by Day Keane. All of these reviews were yours and not mine, but no one knew that at the time.
Right, like you said, we don't do bylines, and Paperback Warrior is a house name.
Right. So then a commenter on the blog clearly felt like enough was enough, Eric. I'm going to read the comment he left on our Dead in Bed review. You ready?
Yeah.
His comment was under the name The Night Stalker. Seems like Tom has really taken over the site with his hard-boiled 1950s crime novels. I hope you get back to reviewing more men's adventure and spy novels to broaden this blog. Now, I found this interesting because he was clearly very fed up with me and not you. So I responded, every review this week has been from Eric. Now, see, I thought this would put the issue to rest. But the Night Stalker clearly has a hard-on for me, and he refuses to believe that it's Eric letting him down and not me. And he said, fair enough, but Tom clearly pushed him in this direction. Before Tom came along, he was almost exclusively reviewing men's adventure novels, right? So I did what I always do when someone hates the blog. I blame it on Eric. My response to the guy was, and this is the truth, Eric and Tom met in October 2017, and Eric invited Tom to begin writing for the Paperback Warrior in November 2017. Eric still runs all things regarding Paperback Warrior and has complete creative control over what happens in the site and the podcast. Eric regularly borrows books from Tom's library, which is slightly bigger than Eric's, to read and review. The upshot is that Eric reviews whatever he wants, and Tom mostly does it well. As well. Since the partnership began, Paperback Warrior has evolved from a men's adventure paperback site to a general interest vintage paperback site. If there are titles you would like us to tackle, please let us know. We're very interested in book recommendations. Now, Eric, that was a pretty nice approach to this guy, right?
Yeah.
I think, though, his point's interesting, and it begs a question. Have I been a bad influence on you? Have I ruined your blog?
Man, that whole exchange is hilarious. It's like you've been targeted by my mom for introducing me to, like, Black Sabbath, and now my friends are freaking out that my room decor has switched from, like, sunshine and daisies to gravestones and black bats. How dare you corrupt my little Eric?
I can't win with this guy. Like, he originally, he's pissed at me, right, for writing these reviews. And then when I say, well, guess what? It was actually Eric. He's like, well, you're just a bad influence on Eric. So I can't get ahead.
Well, we've talked about this a number of times. And I started the blog as a humor site to poke fun at all the road warrior, sweaty dudes that are running around the jungles rescuing, POWs wearing, bandanas and God knows what. That was my gimmick, and then I started reading these things and, found that I really liked reading them. I thought they were enjoyable. So it was a conundrum at that point that needed some counseling. And by the time I met you, I'd already started taking a serious approach to the blog and then adding stuff like Westerns into the typical, Conan, Outrider, MIA hunter material, all stuff that I found that I was really, really enjoying. But in meeting you for the first time and seeing your crime-noir library, it made me become fascinated with all these other types of literature. So I'd only experienced the men's action-adventure stuff and horror and comics prior to that. So, long answer to your question is no. You've broadened my horizons and made me, what I would consider a better reader. And God, someone should be playing a soft Chicago ballad right now. Peter Cetera is begging for a song credit.
The plot thickens.
Okay.
So I was tempted to unload on this Night Stalker guy and make fun of him for kind of being a dick. But then I did some internet sleuthing and saw that he has a book blog himself. So I thought it was going to be fun to ridicule the guy, but then I started reading his reviews, and I'm sorry to say that they're all really, really good. This guy's a good writer. He reviews all the right stuff. He reviews Richard Stark, Jack Higgins, Lionel White, the Quiller book, stuff like that. And I got to say, his reviews are excellent, and he's a very good writer. So I bend my knee to him. So instead of ripping this guy a new a-hole, I just want to say that I really enjoyed his blog, and I'm sorry that he no longer likes ours.
Do you want to plug his URL?
Sure. It's Shadow Scout, one word, .ninja.
Do you want to say the other thing that we talked about off the air?
All right. I'll be gentle here.
Okay.
Mr. Shadow Scout seems to fancy himself to be an actual ninja in full black pajama garb. I'm just going to invite our listeners to check out the gallery section of his blog to see the photos that he posted of himself doing ninja stuff in his pajamas. I'm going to leave it to the listener to decide if this looks cool or not. Now, Eric, I know you're trying to bait me into attacking this guy because he was a dick in our comment section, but I refuse to be baited. I like his book reviews. In fact, I'm going to say that he is a better reviewer than I am, and I'll just leave it at that. In fact, if Paperback Warrior would probably be a lot more popular if we had a photo gallery of us leaping over fire in our pajamas. I'm not going to make fun of this guy because his blog is excellent, and we book bloggers need to be building bridges, not walls, Eric. I mean, you saw the pictures, right?
You mean the pictures at shadowscout.ninja/gallery?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
I'm not going to make fun of the guy, okay? I don't make fun of people anymore. I'm evolved. And I also don't want to get a throwing star between my eyes when I'm walking in my car in the morning.
Well, with his secrets of invisibility, you'd hardly see him coming.
That's what I'm saying. We shouldn't be beefing with other book bloggers anyway. And he's good. His blog is excellent. If you really care about the Paperback Warrior brand, Eric, you should probably fire me and hire him for the podcast.
I just worry that the sound quality might be muffled by his ninja hood. That makes me think, do you think he wears a COVID mask with that?
Don't make fun of this guy, Eric. He likes you. I'm the one he hates, okay? You're on his good side. Although I want to make it clear that the crappy reviews that he hated were all yours, not mine, okay? You're the bad guy in the story, not me.
But that's because you've been a bad influence on me.
We should probably just move on, right? Why don't we do the superfan shout-outs?
All right, so we do this every month, and I'll try to make this quick. We don't take ads at Paperback Warrior, and all our content is totally, completely free. There's no paywall here because, paywalls suck.
The problem, though, is that we still have expenses relating to running the podcast and the blog. I mean, web hosting, equipment, software licenses, podcast hosting services, none of these things are free.
So the way we keep this operation solvent is by accepting donations from listeners.
Right. So if you go to paperbackwarrior.com and you click on the full website, now that's the desktop version, not the mobile version, and go to the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see a PayPal link. If you click that link, you can make whatever donation you'd like to support the show and the blog.
But only do this if you can afford it. If times are tough for any reason, don't worry about donating. We're just happy that you're listening to it.
Anyway, so every month or so, we like to recognize the superfans who donated to keep this show alive. And we do this in a monthly segment we call Superfan Shoutout. So, Eric, why don't you do the honors?
Thanks to the following superfans for your donations. Andrew Monge, Gordon Tuffin, Bob Dice, David Kowalski, as always, Jake Thomas.
All right, cool. So thank you, superfans. We wouldn't be doing this show as efficiently and effectively without your support. Eric, we've been horsing around plenty. Why don't let's play the music. Let's do a feature.
All right, let's do it.
Our feature today is about an author named Clifton Adams, who was born in 1919 in a town called Comanche, Oklahoma. During World War II, he was part of the 2nd Armored Division, where he served in both Africa and Europe. He was really into wine. He was a fairly accomplished jazz drummer, and he had a vast collection of books on the history of Oklahoma. Now, after World War II, he utilized the GI Bill to attend the University of Oklahoma to study professional writing, a degree that focused solely on making a living as a writer. As an aside, another guy who got the same specialized degree from the same program at University of Oklahoma was Jack Bickham, a paperback original author under his own name, as well as the famous pseudonym Jeff Clinton that he used to write the Wildcat O'Shea westerns. Later in life, Clifton Adams won the Oklahoma Writer of the Year award, issued by the University of Oklahoma. And in his acceptance speech, he said, "There's only one way to approach the kind of writing I do, and that's as a business. I'm not selling art. I'm selling entertainment." And with that idea as his North Star, he succeeded. During his career, Clifton Adams wrote 50 novels and 125 short stories. His first professional sale was to a pulp magazine called Adventure in January 1947, and the story was called Champions Wear Purple. His first novel is often cited as his best one. It's called Desperado, and it was originally released as a Fawcett Gold Medal paperback in 1950, and it was a monster hit that spawned a sequel in 1953 called A Noose for the Desperado. Both books actually remain available today as reprints from Stark House. They're westerns, but they're more accurately crime novels set in the Old West. And see, that's the thing with Clifton Adams. I maintain that he was really a crime fiction author who happened to set most of his crime novels in the Old West. Desperado was adapted for the screen in 1954 as The Desperado, starring Wayne Morris, Beverly Garland, and Lee Van Cleef. His only other film adaptations, he did one called Cole Younger, Gunfighter from 1958, and there was a TV movie adaptation of The Dangerous Days of Kiowa Jones from 1964. His only series, unless you count the 2 Desperado books, was the Amos Flagg series, written under the pseudonym of Clay Randall. The series went from 1964 to 1969 for 7 installments. I got to tell you, I tried to read one, but I just couldn't get into it. But the cover art's amazing. He also wrote 5 standalone novels under the Clay Randall name between 53 and 63. Clifton Adams also wrote westerns under the name Matt Kincaid, 6 novels between 58 and 73. There's one called Hard Case that looks kind of badass, and I'd like to read that one.
I had no idea that was that was Clifton Adams.
You got some of those?
I've got, I think, a couple Kincaids. I had no idea.
Yep, it's him. So for his Western writing, he won 2 Spur Awards, which is from the Western Writers of America. And 1969, he won an award for Trag's Choice. In 1970, for The Last Days of Wolf Garnett. Put a pin in those Spur Awards because we're going to discuss them later when we run down some of his recommended titles. While most of his work was Western fiction, he also wrote some very important contemporary crime fiction novels that our listeners should know about. The 3 big ones: Whom Gods Destroy from 1953, Death's Sweet Song, also from 1953, and Never Say No to a Killer from 1956. That one was written under the name Jonathan Gant. Consider those the big 3. They're all available from Stark House. Let me give you a quick synopsis, just a couple sentences from each. Whom Gods Destroy is about a guy who returns to his hometown and gets involved in a liquor bootlegging operation. It's really good, but it has a very flawed main character. Death's Sweet Song is about a guy who runs a crappy cabin motel on Route 66 in Oklahoma. He learns that a couple of the guests at the motel are planning a payroll heist, and he wants to get in on the action. It is an awesome book. If you like Richard Stark or Lionel White, you're going to like Death's Sweet Song. The third one I want to tell you about is called Never Say No to a Killer. Again, I said earlier, it was written under the pseudonym of Jonathan Gant, also available today from Starkhouse under Clifton Adams' own name. It's just a really violent and blood-soaked man-on-the-run story about a guy who escapes from his prison chain gang. And so those three books are absolutely essential reading if you're into vintage crime fiction. Again, Whom Gods Destroy, Death's Sweet Song, Never Say No to a Killer.
Do you have all three of those reviewed on the blog?
All three available at Paperback Warrior as far as non-reviews with no spoilers in them, so you can check that out. So he only had two other crime fiction books, but they are hard as hell to find. One is called The Very Wicked, written under the name Nick Hudson. It's a Berkeley paperback. And the other one is The Long Vendetta, also written under the name Jonathan Gant. It never had a proper paperback release, so again, it's hard to find, and when you do find it, it's probably going to be a hardcover. And hey, listen, reprint houses, I know you're listening here. Clifton Adams is a national treasure, and The Very Wicked and Long Vendetta, probably more so The Long Vendetta, really should be back in print. So somebody take the initiative and get that back in print. Let's move on to his Westerns. Eric, you read Clifton Adams' book from 1962 called Day of the Gun. Give listeners the lowdown.
Day of the Gun is about an old-timer named Sam Ingalls who blows into an Oklahoma town where he tries to get a job as the local marshal. Instead, he gets roped into riding in a posse to catch a killer. The book was exciting, and I really, really enjoyed it. Again, it's called Day of the Gun by Clifton Adams.
The next one of his Westerns I want to recommend is called The Hottest 4th of July in the History of Hangtree County. It's about the marshal of this Old West county on the 4th of July. Three brothers with an axe to grind show up in town among the July 4 celebrations with an eye toward exacting some revenge against the marshal for something that happened years ago. It had a real Gary Cooper High Noon feel to it. I absolutely love this book, and I recommend it. Again, it's called The Hottest 4th of July in the History of Hangtree County. Bit of a mouthful. Lastly, Eric, why don't you tell us about Trag's Choice, which is probably one of his most famous Westerns, and then I have a crazy story to tell you and the listener about this book.
Okay. Well, Trag's Choice was a 1969 Clifton Adams Western about a U.S. Marshal. His name was Marshal Owen Trag, and he famously kills a notorious desperado and spends the next decade making money on the lecture circuit telling the story of the killing to audiences. While on the road, he finds himself saddled with a drifter killer, a bounty hunter, and the girlfriend of an outlaw. These four have this remarkable adventure together on the road, and I'm not going to avoid I want to avoid spoiling this novel for the listener, but it was an amazingly good Western. It also won the Spur Award in 1969 for Best Western Novel.
Right. And this is where the story gets really weird. Okay, in the world of Western fiction, the Spur Award is a big deal. It's like winning an Oscar award, but it's for Western fiction. So we have this Paperback Warrior superfan named John Baird, and he's a real supporter of the show. He donates money, sends me emails every now and then, just a great guy. Also, best of all, he has an AOL email address, so he's definitely part of our tribe.
Right.
So a while ago, John was looking for a copy of The Long Vendetta, that hard-to-find hardcover crime novel that Clifton Adams wrote under the name Jonathan Gant. He connects with a bookseller in Denver called Gallagher Books, and at the time, they couldn't find their copy of the book. Now, John must have left his info with the bookseller because the lady who runs the bookstop requests his address and sends him a copy of the book out of the blue, like weeks or months later. But she didn't just send him the book, Eric. She sent him this. Let me hand this over to you. Careful.
He's pulling something out of a box.
Careful with this.
What the hell?
Isn't this insane? All right, tell the listener what I just handed to you.
How long have you had this?
I've had it for a couple of weeks. So tell the listener what I just handed you.
He just handed me Clifton Adams Spur Award for Trag's Choice. It says Western Writers of America Spur Award, Best Western Novel, 1969, Trag's Choice by Clifton Adams, and it's literally a spur.
Yeah, it's a spur attached to like a plaque. Yeah.
Is this real?
It's real, and it's the only one in existence. I have Clifton Adams Spur Award sitting here at the poker table that we record.
How did you get this?
So John sent it to me as a gift. it's kind of amazing to have Clifton Adams Award just sitting here. It's incredibly generous of John to give it to us. It's like having Meryl Streep's Academy Award or William Refrigerator Perry's Super Bowl ring just lying around my house. But I got to tell you, I feel a little weird holding on to this thing. I mean, it really belongs to Clifton Adams' family members, don't you think?
Yeah, I would think so. I don't know why they don't have this.
Right. Well, I did a little homework on this. So I have no idea. I had no idea how it wound up in the hands of this bookstore in Denver. And I've not taken the time to actually track down Clifton Adams' heirs myself, because Clifton Adams, he died of a heart attack in October 7, 1971 in San Francisco at age 52. And as someone who is turning 51 later this week, I find that absolutely terrifying. Anyway, so I wanted to track down Clifton Adams' family, and so I could return this award to them. But it was nagging at me how the Spur Award wound up at Gallagher Books in the first place.
Right.
So I called the owner of the store. I mean, it's a listed number. Her name's Sue Gallagher. And Eric, she is the nicest lady ever. She opened this shop, Gallagher Books, in the mid-1990s with her husband, who passed away 5 years ago. So I explained to Mrs. Gallagher who I am and the show that we do, and I wasn't sure how much tickling of her memory I'd have to do to make her remember the Spur Award, but man, she remembered it immediately. And I asked her how on earth that she came to have Clifton Adams Spur Award in her possession. And she said that Clifton Adams had a sister who lived in Denver, and the sister came into Gallagher Books in or around 1999 and sold Mr. Gallagher a stack of Clifton Adams hardcovers and the 2 Spur Awards that he won, one of which was Trag's Choice, the one that I have right now. The award and the books sat in her inventory for 22 years until our superfan John called her looking for The Long Vendetta. So she finally finds the book to send it to him. She thought he might also get a kick out of this award, which had just been collecting dust there. And she included it in the box she sent John. And then John sent it to me, and here we are. You and I have the Spur Award here.
That's just a crazy story, man. So his sister apparently needed money, or she just needed more space in the garage.
Yeah, but she just wasn't into it, right? I mean, she's her brother. Again, this is 29 years after her brother died.
Wow. Yeah, that's true.
Right? So she inherits his Spur Award, 2 of them probably,
yeah.
and then a bunch of hardcover books. She doesn't really care.
Yeah,
doesn't sound like there's a lot of other heirs.
Yep.
And in fact, I even said to Sue, Mrs. Gallagher, I said I'd love to be able to find the family members, and she goes, I don't know that there are any. And so she thinks that the Clifton Adams bloodline may be just gone. Anyway, so I reach out to the University of Oklahoma, and I was thinking that they may have Clifton Adams papers in their archives or libraries, and I could somehow marry the Spur Award with the papers there, and just to have them somewhere where they belong, because I just feel weird about having this thing. The librarian responded to me that the University of Oklahoma Western History Collections does not maintain Clifton Adams papers. Now, they do have a letter from 1963 that Clifton Adams exchanged with a fellow Western author named Bill Burchart. The librarian said that the Clifton Adams papers are probably at the American Heritage Center at the University of Wyoming. So I'm going to contact the University of Wyoming and see if they want this Spur Award in their Clifton Adams collection. Again, it's not that I don't appreciate this gift from John, but this particular Spur Award should really be with either his family or in some kind of museum situation. I mean, if anyone has any leads as far as what the right thing to do with this is, I'm all ears. I'm happy to listen to what our listeners have to say. I just don't know what to do with this thing. I appreciate it. I like it. It's cool. I just feel weird that this is the highest honor paid to a Western writer, and I'm just some dork who's sitting on this thing in my house due to some weird circumstances of people passing this thing on from one person to another.
Yeah, as much as I like Clifton Adams' work, I just want to say thanks to John for letting me at least hold this thing. I mean, it's awesome.
The guy's so cool. I mean, he's the greatest dude. I just wanted to make sure I do the right thing by Clifton Adams' memory, and I'm not sure my library here is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I got for Clifton Adams. Why don't you go ahead and do a book review?
All right, so we'll kind of stick with a Western theme here. My review this week is a fairly new trade paperback from our friends at Bold Venture Press. This is the first book in a 27-book series called Benedict and Brazos. The series was originally published by Cleveland Publishing in the 1980s, and since then it's been reprinted as a trade paperback series through Bold Venture Press. The author listed on these is E. Jefferson Clay, but this is really prolific Western author Paul Willihan. So in this opening book, Aces Wild, we learned that Duke Benedict was a Union captain and Hank Brazos was a Confederate sergeant. And there's this flashback in Chapter 3 that describes the duo's first meeting.
They're like the Reconstruction odd couple.
Really? Well, it was at a place called Pea Ridge, Pea, Pea Ridge, Georgia, during the American Civil War. The Confederates' mission, which is being led by Brazos, is to escort a wagon containing $200,000 in gold into Mexico. It's one of those things that you see sometimes where they're going to set the Confederacy up a second time and the South's going to rise again kind of thing.
Right.
You've seen it before in Westerns. There's this guy named Bo Wrangle, and he's leading a gang of guerrilla forces that sweep in and they take the gold. So during the exchange, both Benedict and Brazos find themselves as allies in the fight, and really the only two remaining soldiers left alive of this skirmish. So after Wrangle wins the fight, steals the gold, rides away, Brazos and Benedict shake hands, and then they go their separate ways. But after the war, Benedict becomes this sharp-dressed womanizer who drifts from town to town, winning card games and betting down the women. He's one of those guys. Brazos, he came across to me as sort of like this Hoss Cartwright sort of brawler, like a big brawler. But he really just saddle tramps from town to town. And as destiny sees fit, the two end up running into each other in a town called Daybreak. And, man, there is a lot of stuff going on in this book. The first is that Bo Wrangle has used some of the stolen gold to set up this whorehouse inside Daybreak. And his lady, Belly, runs the whole thing. Second, there's this kind of a crazy narrative, but the second part of it is there's a Christian woman's auxiliary group hoping to boot this cat house out of town. I mean, seriously, that's a
good plot line.
It's a storyline. Third is a bounty hunter named Surprising Smith, who's leading a town posse after a trio of outlaws led by this villain named Sprod.
I have a copy of this. This is a really thin book with fairly sizable font. There seems like a lot going on in very few pages.
There's a lot going on, and at one point I started questioning, when is Benedict and Brazos going to actually involve themselves in the storyline? But the thing is, Benedict is secretly searching for Wrangle's gold while he's seducing Wrangle's flirtatious woman as well as Surprising Smith's girlfriend. And Brazos brawls his way through a few barroom escapades and eventually meets up with Benedict and learns about his plan to find and recover the gold. So they strike up a deal, sort of, and the two work together to fight the outlaws and recover the gold. I was thinking, when is the stars from the book's cover actually going to do something meaningful? And they eventually do, but the author seems pretty patient to just let the story play out through all these various characters that weren't necessarily the stars of the show. There's leather slapping all around, but it takes some time to get to the proverbial showdown. The book introduces a series through story, though, that's going to have Benedict and Brazos team up to find the gold throughout the series installments. So the common thing is, from book to book, they're going to be looking for Bo Wrangle and his cachet of gold. I'm kind of interested in the second book. I was reading the synopsis of it, which apparently features a Jack the Ripper sort of Old West serial killer. So
I got a little intel on this.
Okay.
I'm told that the first book in the series is okay, and that sounds like you're consistent with it. But I'm told that the later ones actually get really, really good.
Okay, all right.
Like the first one is the worst of the series.
Okay.
But again, you know better than I do whether it's good or bad. But the series gets better and better and better. I'm told as the books unfold.
Well, that's good. I'm lukewarm on this, but I'm definitely on board to try it again, especially that second one with Jack the Ripper. But yeah, later ones I could definitely try. But anyway, that's Aces Wild. The first book in the Benedict and Brazos series by E. Jefferson Clay, which is really Paul Willihan. And it's out now through Bold Venture Press if you want a physical copy. I would be remiss not to say that Piccadilly Publishing also has it out as an ebook for $1.99.
And they kept the old cover, which is kind of nice. I'm going to review Nick Carter Killmaster number 106, The Fanatics of Al-Assad. The author of this one, because the Nick Carter books always make it look like Nick Carter is the author, like who are they fooling, was actually a dude by the name of Saul Wernick. And he was a Boston native, lived from 1921 to 1982, and he authored a handful of very pulpy horror and action paperbacks, most notably Executioner number 39, The New War, which is a transitional novel in the Mac Bolan series. He also contributed 5 different books to the Nick Carter Killmaster books, including this one from 1976. The paperback opens with an Arab terrorist strapped to a hospital bed being questioned by Nick Carter while being pumped full of truth serum. See, what's happened is the president and the vice president of the U.S. have been killed, and the Speaker of the House is ascending to the presidency, but the Speaker is kidnapped and held for ransom by a Palestinian terrorist group known as Al-Assad, which translates into the Lion. Then the terrorists want $100 million cash and arms reduction from Israel. As you can imagine, Israel's not really excited about that idea, right, in exchange for the safe return of the Speaker of the House, who I guess now is technically president. So Axe's best man, Nick Carter, receives the assignment, which is a good deal for us since he's narrating the book. He's assigned a partner from Israel's intel service, a hot babe named Tamar. Guess what? She has a slim figure and full breasts.
Imagine that.
Right. And she also has an expertise in Islamist extremists. With Tamar in tow, Nick goes off to University of Kansas for a quick lesson on Islam and the Quran, because Axe doesn't have a 1976 World Book Encyclopedia. The Fanatics of Al-Assad reminded me in its best moments as like an episode of 24. Complete with very specific timestamps at the opening of each chapter. Despite the sense of urgency, there's all sorts of timeouts for very graphic 1970s sex between Nick and the fair Israeli Tamar. At one point, Nick's manhunt has him going undercover as a radical Muslim jihadi, while very cavalierly spouting off facts about Islam that the author clearly gleaned from National Geographic magazine. Mostly he spends the book's first half kind of skulking around Manhattan, talking to informants without a ton of action at all. This is the easiest book in the world to pick apart. So dig this, Eric. The president and the vice president were killed by terrorists, and the Speaker of the House, the new president, is being held hostage. So the U.S. intelligence community just assigns one guy to handle it, right?
Jeez.
Meanwhile, the rest of America seems to be going about its normal business, like eating dinner in restaurants and having unabandoned sex and keeping calm and carrying on. We've seen, Eric, in our adult lives here, that it doesn't take much to drive our nation into like paralyzed hysteria. But the country's just pretty chill about this with this terrorist attack killing our leaders because Nick Carter has it handled. Right. I could go on, but I don't want to spoil the stupidity leading to this book's climax. There are a lot of dumb stuff in this book that you're going to need to forgive, and I just couldn't do it. I wanted to like this book, but it just kept getting dumber and dumber as the pages flipped. Toward the end, there are some decent action set pieces, but the reader really needs to suspend disbelief beyond reason to just get there. The Fanatics of Al-Assad squanders an outstanding premise, and the listener should not waste their time with this installment. Listener, you deserve better. The book, again, is The Fanatics of Al-Assad by Saul Wernick, writing as Nick Carter.
I want listeners to realize that Tom actually borrowed that Nick Carter book from me. It's the first novel he's ever borrowed from my library, and I shed a little happy tear when he pulled out of the driveway with it. I
came to your house special. I took a special trip from my house to your house to get it.
Yeah, I was shocked.
Like 10 in the morning.
But I literally borrow armfuls of books when I come over here to record, and I never read them, and they're in a box in my office waiting for attention. But anyway, I'm happy that you borrowed a book from me.
Well, we were getting such criticism from our ninja friend about not reading action-adventure spy novels. Yeah. I finally read one, and I just picked a bad one. This one was terrible. Yeah. Anyway, that about wraps it up, Eric. Why don't you talk us out?
All right, so that wraps up the 85th episode of the Paperback Warrior podcast. Join us on Facebook and Twitter to join the conversation and let us know what you think of the show, good, bad, or indifferent. Check out our daily book reviews at paperbackwarrior.com with archives going back for several years. You can also donate to the show via the PayPal link to keep us ad-free. There's a link on the desktop version of our homepage. On behalf of Tom, this is Eric signing off, and we're going to see you next Monday.
Be cool.